in to the hottest station on the planet.
Resistance is futile. The revolution has begun.
You're listening to Rebelpreneur Radio, helping you break the rules and build the business you need for the life you want. And now, broadcasting his pirate signal
from somewhere beyond the status quo,
here's your host, best-selling author, marketing and media strategist, Ralph Brogden.
Hello and welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio, the show that helps you build the business you need so you can live the life you want. I'm Ralph Brogden. Well, all of us would like to have more money, more love, more motivation, more confidence. Today's guest is going to help us achieve those things so that we can put them to work in our business as well as in our personal lives and in our relationships. I'm speaking with Lucas Roy Lehman, who speaks and leads seminars on personal power and intimacy all over the U.S., Sweden, and Canada. He is a certified Neurotransformational coach, a certified sacred sexuality educator, and he's the author of the new Amazon #1 best-selling book, 7 Principles of Sex and Money and Power. Very important topics, so I'm really delighted to have you. Lucas Roy Lehman, welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio.
Thanks, Ralph. It's really great to be here. Appreciate it.
Well, you are hitting on all of the major areas of life that people are really struggling with, right?
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's funny. There's a quote that I open my book with. It's an Oscar Wilde quote, and he says, "Everything is about sex except sex. Sex is about power." So that pretty much is the launch-off point for my work in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Well, that's a very interesting quote, and very interesting topic as we dive into sex, money, and power. How did you get started on this journey? Give us your background.
Yeah, so I've been an artist and a musician and a writer and an entrepreneur my whole life. And that was really, I thought that I was aspiring to be a musician or an artist or performer. Like I said, I have a lifetime of experience doing that. However, somewhere along the line, I developed a curiosity and a passion about Tantra yoga, which is one of the 3 limbs of Hatha yoga, actually. And it's really the art and science of sexual energy. So obviously it includes sexual practices in it, but it's much bigger than that. It's our life force energy, it's our Kundalini energy, it's creative energy, it's our spiritual energy, and how we integrate that into our lives, in our sex lives and the bedroom, but really across our whole spectrum of our lives. The same way that yoga, what people think of, it isn't just stretching. It's much more holistic than that. So I just kind of started exploring that, and that led me into, I ended up in a relationship with another Tantra teacher and started doing, sexual healing sessions, and that led to also teaching seminars on sacred sexuality and relationship. I then decided to get my coaching certification. At the time, I had a $2 million jewelry business, so I wasn't doing it for the money. I was really doing it for the passion and the service. And then just as life goes and economies crash and this, that, and the other, ended up sort of taking it full-time into the coaching realm. And it's just been extraordinary. Later, ended up getting also a certification as a neurotransformational coach, which I kind of think of as coaching graduate school, which is about the brain science of how we make change and bring positive things into our life. So this whole kind of holistic integration of body, mind, spirit, sexuality, consciousness, it all integrates together in what I do.
Lots of synergy there with hitting on all the major areas of life, as well as spirit, soul, and body, and relationships, money. And all of these things are valuable to us, not just in our life, but in being able to create the business that makes our lives possible. If we're self-employed, if we're entrepreneurs. So that's very interesting. Now, a lot of people I talk to along these lines, they'll say, I mostly or I exclusively work with women, or I work with men. You're interesting and different because you actually have things that will help women and men, don't you?
Right. They tend to, like my ideal or my typical client tends to be, they're usually women, they're usually in their 50s. And usually that's because they sort of reached a point in their life where they sort of followed the course of like what they were supposed to do, or the vision of the white picket fence or the family or whatever, the social programming. And usually by the time you got to be 50, you succeeded at that, or you failed at that, or some combination of both. The kids are grown, you're divorced or whatever. And suddenly you're now at this place of like, now what, or who am I, or I don't believe that, or that wasn't appropriate. And to really begin this journey of who am I and what is the life that I want to create. And so interestingly, who ends up showing up are typically divorced women. Oftentimes they've been single for a long time and they don't even know if they want to be in a relationship anymore because of what the stories are that they make out about who's out there, or they don't want what they had before, but they don't know what to want instead. So there's that profile. The women, so like I said, typically women who are not in relationship. And ultimately it's about how do they get into intimacy and relationship with themselves and love themselves, because that then changes what's available to them, in the sense of like, we create our own reality is about who we're being, and who we're being affects what experiences we have. Conversely, the men that I end up working with, typically are married. And I think it speaks to a married man. The judgment that I make is perhaps more in touch with his feelings a little bit than someone who's not, and maybe even willing to accept, I don't know, certain vulnerabilities or certain willingness to be wrong and grow from it. Obviously, that's kind of what's necessary to be in a marriage. So interesting profile. And then also, like, oftentimes they're interested in reigniting their passion or their relationship or their power in the relationship. And they don't know how, because they've kind of followed the old model and found themselves, in the corner.
Very interesting. So you have worked with thousands of clients over the last decade to teach them how to shift their old patterns and break through their upper limits and achieve success on many different levels. But what would you say is the biggest challenge you see when people are coming to you for help? What's the biggest complaint?
The biggest complaint, I think, is like it's an overwhelm, lack of clarity, and then underneath that, maybe even the belief that that it can be different, right? That's the shift that happens. Is they're sort of dissatisfied in their life, but they have to step into a place of courage that something else is possible, even though they don't know what it is or how they can get it. That's the shift. And in a way, it's the shift from what I think of as survival thinking to thriving. And you can be a millionaire and still be in survival thinking. Thriving is this different way of being. And ironically enough, it's actually like embracing the not knowing, because when we're in survival, we're in a certain type of our brain is activated, our survival mind, our reptilian brain, which is really good at looking what happened in the past and making sure that doesn't happen again, making sure that we don't get eaten by the lion or whatever. But it's not the part of our brain that's particularly creative to create new possibilities. The joke I like to say is, our forefathers did not invent the bow and arrow when they were running from the lion. They had to be in a place of creativity. And so where I work with people, kind of regardless of what the specific topic is, but how do we shift into a higher level consciousness, a higher level brain state? Albert Einstein says, we can't solve our problems with the same level of thinking that created them. And so what I think that means is most of us are living, if you think of like the culture itself, is really in a vibration of fear and frustration 90% of the time. Well, a consciousness of fear and frustration is just going to create more fear and frustration. It's not going to create that new possibility that solves our problems. And so, we're impacted by the world around us. We're impacted by the sort of hopelessness of things around us. And so then that impacts the vibration of our brain state. And so it's really a question of what is your heart's desire? What do you dream of? And then how do we shift into a brain state where you're actually excited about manifesting those possibilities?
Yeah. I like what you said about the difference in our mind between a survival mentality and a thriving mentality. We can be surviving or we can be thriving. And that's part of what you do. If I understand this correctly, neurotransformational is simply talking about brain and behavior, the relationship between your mind and your behavior and the things that you manifest as a result of your thoughts. And so your work has to do with shifting that state of mind, shifting that belief and that behavior. How does that work in a typical case? Is that something that takes a long time, or is it instantaneous, or does it depend on the person?
Well, I would say all of the above in a way, because we have we've been trained to be a certain way, and then that's going to be familiar and comfortable. It may not be pleasant, but it's what we're going to decide that's what reality is. And then we're going to attract other people into that who are going to confirm that reality. So there's a a lot of people are invested in a certain story. And so that's the first place, is to recognize, like, what's the programming? What radio station is the default setting of your brain? And for a lot of people, it's the I should station.
Uh-huh.
Or that I'm not enough station. And when I do this, then I'll be good enough, or whatever. And oftentimes that might be why they come to coaching, is like, okay, I'm here and I want to get to there. And there's this whole pile of shoulds, till I get there. I should before I can meet the love of my life, I need to lose 25 pounds. And that means I should go to the gym 3 times a week. And so none of that is necessarily inaccurate, but it's not accessing the part of our brains and our hearts and our spirit that actually get us motivated for very long. We've only got a very little bit of willpower to create something new. And so we need to use that very effectively of where we put it, because you can't just say, I'm just going to do more, and I'm just going to do more, and I'm just going to do more from a place of should, because I'm not good enough. You'll run out of gas. You'll lose the weight, then you put it back on. It's really a amount of a shifting of, who am I in relationship to myself? How am I being right now? Can I come from a place of, like, you know what? Everything's okay right now. I wonder how it can get even better, rather than it sucks right now, and when I get to there, then I'll be okay. That's exhausting. We need to start with, what's great right now, and how do you build on that, which is not the way we're programmed. We're programmed to look at, you got a 92. Certainly in my experience with my family, my father, I got straight A's, and he would always say, well, yeah, but you only got a 98 in that class. What did you do on the other 2%? Well, why did I even bother? If the only thing that counts is perfection, and I can't get perfection, I may as well just give up right now. And until we reveal what the underlying thought structures are, we can't begin to invest in new ones.
Yeah.
And that's what we do.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think most people would agree that they get in their own head far too much, and they need to get out of their own head and get around all of the rules that we create, not just in life and in relationships, but money rules and business rules and success rules. We've got all of these scripts and programs that have been given to us that we just accept, and we try to run the program. It doesn't work, but we hang on to it. How do we shift out of that old pattern and create the breakthrough? And specifically for people who are listening right now, what can they begin to do to begin to lean into this, to dial this in and at least begin taking some steps in the right direction?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's this shift of where, again, when you mention money, like, people will say, it's so expensive to spend money on XYZ, particularly like this kind of coaching, which I think, like I said, who you're being, how you're showing up for life. If you're showing up for life with curiosity, joyfulness, openness, different experiences are going to become available to you than if you show up in fear, frustration, expectations of negativity. You can put a smiley face on it all you want, but the vibration of that creates the story that we're all living into. And so the piece is the recognition that it's worth, that I'm the CEO of my own company. And so it's valuable to invest in who I'm being. That's more important than investing in a new CRM or a new marketing campaign, because, right? And that's where people, I think, make the mistake. Like they put themselves in a way last, or, oh, I can't afford to go to the gym until XYZ. Like, no, you can't afford not to go to the gym, and XYZ comes later, because otherwise you won't actually have the physical, what I call physical prosperity, to actually handle the amount of energy required for your success. Because ultimately, if you want more money, you have to put more energy into the system to get it. And where is that energy coming from? How are you going to be able to run it through your body? And where is the energy coming from? And so where I like to suggest is the first place you get more energy, well, you can hire me and I'll bring energy. And then with that energy, I'll help you get clarity. And with that clarity, you'll particularly notice where you're losing energy. And when you're able to fix the leaks of where you're losing energy, then suddenly you've got the energy to go to the gym on Saturday, as opposed to, I'm so burned out, I should go to the gym, but I'm just going to eat cookies and watch TV instead.
Well, give us an example of how somebody would be losing energy. What would that look like?
So they might be losing energy in they're in a relationship that is dissatisfying. They're unconnected with their partner, but they're staying because it feels safe, or because they're afraid of being alone, or whatever. So but underneath that is going to usually be some sort of limiting belief of, I don't deserve to be loved the way I want to be loved, or I can't have it, or I don't know how to have it, or whatever. So I'm just going to accept a crap sandwich because that's all I deserve. Right. And so if we begin to shift of like, oh, that person has it. If they have it, then it's possible to have it. I don't know how to have it because I've never had it before, but I want it, and I'm open that someone else can lead the way. And then things shift, but they shift because of if I shift who I'm being, then the world can't be the same way in relationship to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense. And there is no quick fix, and it's a process of transformational growth to make those shifts. You didn't get there all at once, and you're not going to snap out of it all at once, but it does, requires some energy, a third party coming in, giving you insight and clarity, and helping you to see things that you could not see on your own. Tell us a little bit more about what our listeners can do to connect with you, and maybe something you'd like to share that's really got you excited right now.
Yeah, great, thanks. So one of the to get more clarity. First of all, a lot of people feel like, do you ever feel it's like there's not enough time, and that time is this finite thing, and there's not enough. We're way too busy, and it's true, time is finite. But the thing is, if you study physics at all, and Albert Einstein, we don't live in time, we live in space-time. And so we do have the ability to expand our experience of space and spaciousness. That's one of the powers of meditation, is if I'm able to expand my consciousness, then kind of the world slows down. There becomes more space for new possibilities, new behaviors, new reactions, new thoughts. And so I have a free gift that I would like to offer anyone who ever said, wow, I should meditate more because I heard it's a good thing. But meditation can be hard, particularly different ones. And so I've created a really simple process that I call tuning to the key of me. And so there's it's a $79 value. It's free on my website. So if you go to lucasroylehman.com, Lucas Roy, last name LEHMAN.com, and then on the tab that says free gift, you can get a download of my tuning to the key of me meditation transformation process. That'll change your life right there. Because again, back to how do I create the possibility for a new thought to come in? Well, I have to create the space for it. If I'm just having the same thoughts over and over and over again, I'm going to get the same results. How do I create the possibility for new thoughts? Well, I need to create the space, and then the thoughts come in.
Very interesting.
Come into the space.
And I like how you brought in Einstein. His law of relativity is pretty much that it's all relative. If you think that you're in, and just to use that to apply it to what you're saying, if you think that you are in a constricted space, you're going to live as though you were constricted. If you begin to relate to the world around you with more openness, you're going to have and feel and experience less restriction. And Einstein would say that's all relative.
Right. And one of the mistakes that people make is they think, okay, so I'm just going to say positive affirmations. And that's sort of like putting lipstick on a pig. That if I feel broke and I feel I don't have enough money and I'm scared about money and I'm living in fear, I could say, I have plenty of money, I have plenty of money, I have plenty of money 1,000,000 times from a place of fear, right? That's the level of thinking. So my problems are created from a level of fear. I don't have enough money. Oh no, I'm abundant. I'm so grateful for blah, 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 blah. But if I'm saying that from an experience of fear, it's worthless. So the question is, how do I shift to a different place and then do my gratitudes? Well, that has a completely different effect. Yeah. And that's not something that, that's something that it needs someone who knows the tools. I kind of think of it like, nobody needs a tennis coach or a golf coach, right? Nobody needs a life coach. You're perfectly fine, whoever's listening to this. The question is, are you happy living a double bogey life? If you are, keep playing. But anyone who's a double bogey golfer knows they can play golf 1,000,000 times. They can go to the range by themselves 1,000,000 times, and they're not going to get any better. And if they enjoy that, great. I would argue that being a par golfer is more fun than being a double bogey golfer. It's just more fun. Doesn't matter. We're going to die at the end. Who cares, right?
I love it.
But it's more
fun. Well, I can see right now, Lucas, that you are very gifted at shifting people's emotional state, because that's pretty hilarious when you think about it. Our time is just about gone, but I always like to ask, if you have, all of it has been good, but do you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom that you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Yeah, I guess it's just back to this sense that as humans, there are two primary aspects to us, the doing and the being. And particularly as Americans, we focus on the doing. I'm dissatisfied, so I'm going to do something to try to satisfy it or whatever. And the energy of doing is way more effective when it comes from a different state of being. So, that's the shift. And so the question is, who am I being? Am I waking up in the morning as a joyful being? And if I'm not, how do I make that shift? Because if I make 37 cold calls from a place of abundance and joyful being, I'm going to have a lot better results than if I make 37 cold calls from a place of fear and I really need this sale. And that's where I believe the investment is so profound. Because then I get to be joyful starting right now. It's not once I get to that $1 million. It's really a reframe. Like people will judge themselves. Oh, I'll be a success when I make $1 million. And so if success is only a destination, that means that I'm a failure every single day until I reach my destination.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would ask the question, how can you be succeeding on your journey to success? That's the reframe. That's the being. Oh, well, I can't be a millionaire today. What does succeeding look like and feel like today on my way to that? And that accelerates how soon I get there. Otherwise, I'm beating myself up, telling myself I'm a failure every day, which is not highly motivating.
True. All right. Well, there you have it. Words of wisdom from Lucas Roy. Yeah. From Lucas Roy Lehman, who speaks and leads seminars on personal power and intimacy all over the U.S., Sweden, and Canada. He is a certified neurotransformational coach, a certified sacred sexuality educator, and author of the new Amazon #1 best-selling book, 7 Principles of Sex and Money and Power. You can reach out to Lucas at lucasroylehman.com. We'll have that link posted up on the Rebelpreneur website as well. Lucas, it's been a real pleasure to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for spending time with us. I really appreciate it.
Me too. Thanks, Ralph. I had a great time.
You've been listening to Rebelpreneur Radio with Ralph Brogden. Download the show notes and much more at rebelpreneur.com.